And we are live for another live stream. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So, we are finally giving self-taught developers a fighting chance. Reviewed a lot of coding boot camps. And there are so many ways. I learned that there are so many ways to make self-taught developers more successful. And I think over the coming months, I'm going to do the best job that I can to make that clear, to solidify that path. So, this live stream is an attempt, or at least a start, of trying to do that. Now, like the previous live stream, this is going to be just my raw thoughts, raw conversation. We're going to explore it. I brought a very secret technical tool, me being the software engineer that I am. I outdid myself. So we're going to go ahead and use that and dive into this. But before we do, Kelly, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member and supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. Glad to have you. Welcome to our community. And I don't know if you're on Discord or if you're even listening to this. Connect your Discord with your YouTube, and you should get access to a private channel that a lot of us members kind of talk in. But thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. Romello, how's it going? Welcome. Bingle, how you doing? I'm going to butcher your name. Rachdi, is that correct? I hope that's correct. Welcome. He's in from LinkedIn. I appreciate you stopping by. It's really cool seeing the updates with the 30-day coding project. Keep it up. We're almost halfway done with that 30-day coding challenge. Almost halfway done. So here's what I'm going to do. I kind of want to explain why. I kind of did. But I'm going to explain why I think self-taught developers are going to be... It's going to be a more prevalent and successful path in the near future. I'm going to explain why that is and how, more importantly, self-developers can actually compete with coding bootcamp graduates. I think a lot of people are afraid that they don't have a coding bootcamp name on their resume. They don't have even a certificate. They don't have this. I think people have a lot of misconceptions about what software engineering managers care about. And so I'm going to squash those. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can compete and stand out from coding bootcamp graduates. So I think, where do we start? I wrote an outline. It's very messy, like usual, so I'm probably not going to go off of it too much. But I think it's important to recognize, we're going to start with this. I think it's important to recognize what the coding bootcamp industry is turning into. So we're starting to see a lot of coding bootcamps being sold, bought out, especially by more formal educational institutions. So why is that, right? I think a lot of people got into the coding bootcamp game because it was a very, very profitable business. They continue to be able to, they advertise on my channel. They pay a lot of money for the advertisements, a very high CPM because of it. I know exactly how much money coding bootcamps are making. It's a very profitable industry that, in my opinion, is reaching its peak. I think the coding bootcamp industry has stripped most of the money that they're going to be getting from the industry. And I think in the next 5 years, we are going to see coding bootcamps either evolve into something else, or you're going to start seeing coding bootcamps dissipate, go out of business, which is really cool because that opens up options. It opens up competitive options for developers that no longer want to pay that amount of money. Hey, Thomas. Hello from Minneapolis. Welcome. Hey, Draco. How you doing? Oh, you're on LinkedIn too. Okay. Welcome, Thomas. Hey, a view is a view. I appreciate that. All right. So, how do we figure out how self-taught developers can be competitive? What I want from you, and you don't have to post it, But why do you, like, what do you feel like the advantages are with the coding bootcamp? I'm going to list the advantages that I see. But what I want to do is I want to take those advantages. First of all, we have to realize like the advantages that a coding bootcamp offers. And we also have to figure out how we can achieve that and gain that through the self-taught path. And a lot of people feel like, no, there's no chance, right? And I feel like we can take almost any advantage that a coding bootcamp offers and find a resourceful solution, which is what you should be doing as a self-taught developer, to substitute that. That's the key. That is the main key to being a self-taught developer. It's that resourcefulness, it's self-awareness, but we're going to dive more into that. Network and career coaches. Okay, so I say we bring out our secret weapon, our secret tool. You guys ready for this? Pages on Mac. Now I know, not everyone has access to this secret tool, but I did happen to get access. They granted me access. I know a few people. And we're going to be using this tool to write down a few bullet points. A few bullet points, and we're going to run through this entire thing. So, networking and career coaches. So what advantages? Let's go ahead and change this. I think everyone can see. 24. Cool. So network and career coaches. What else? Transparent. Here, let's, how do I want to write this? Transparent. Really confidence in finding a job. Transparent job placement rates? Question mark. So, support system. So this extends past just career coaches. And I wonder if I want to list this. I think we're going to add more. 2 more. Collaboration with other developers. We're going to talk about why that's important. And a curated curriculum. Curated curriculum focused on providing building skills that employers are looking for now. So updated curriculums, right? That's a big advantage of coding boot camps, especially over CS degrees. So anything else, any other advantages that coding boot camps bring that we can talk about and that we can figure out how to supplement? Instructor access, tutoring, support system. We can emphasize instructors, staff. And I guess that'll kind of mix in with network or for career coaches. Mentorship, structured curriculum, knowing what language to learn. So we'll talk about that with a curated curriculum. Group projects, so pair programming, group projects, code reviews. Yep. I'll just put this. I feel like some of these can be paired with each other, but we're going to dive into all of it. That's fine. Accountability. That's big. That's big. Something to get out of bed early for. Internship for code camps. Very few offer that. Sure. Let's say / job opportunities. All right. So, confidence in finding a job. Let's put this down here. That's pretty good, right? That's a good list. So let's dive into some of this stuff. Let me reorder this. Okay. I think this is what I want. Okay, so we're going to dive into the support system, the accountability, the job opportunities, and then the curriculum, right? So those are all good, really good points. I appreciate you helping me come up with this list. You added a couple to what I came up with earlier. Okay, so network and career coaches. So very often with a coding bootcamp, you get something called career services that not only help you curate your resume, your cover letter, the messages that you send out when you're trying to get coffee chats or just network. You'd be surprised at how many coding bootcamps will go that extra mile, though. But, some coding bootcamps offer one-on-ones, right? They offer personalized support. Where are you at with your job search? What companies are you interested in applying to? This is a big advantage with coding bootcamps. Do we list the disadvantages? I think I did this out of order. No, this is good. This is actually better. All right, so with career services with coding bootcamps is often understaffed. It's usually in addition to the coding bootcamp. A lot of coding bootcamps will come up with the curriculum. They'll hire instructors, and career services, as far as the budget, I've seen career services get very low budgets. Career services usually hires for a high turnover job. A lot of career service coaches really care about people. They want to help people, right? And, I still have that on here. How do I toss that? Okay. So very often it's a stressful job, and often career services gets frustrated because the curriculum hasn't prepared students well enough as well. But it's really important to have that guidance in the job search. So I see two sections of becoming a developer: learning what you need to learn, and then the job search, right? Those two require a tremendous amount of time, and career services can provide you targeted advice to be able to make that happen. So how can you find career services elsewhere? A lot of people are shy. A lot of people are shy. I toss out the idea. I'm just going to spitball all the ideas I have right now. And I'm going to tell you most of these people will not do this. Most aspiring developers will not do this. So you can go to meetups. There's mentorship at meetups. You can meet developers. You can meet other aspiring developers that can share their advice. What has worked for them, what has not. You can meet software engineers in the field full time. What has worked for them, what has not. A lot of software engineers that start meetups want to help you. They'll get to know you. You can find this at meetups. You can find this, you can even find additional assistance at hackathons. Some hackathons will even go as far as helping you prepare and giving you advice for preparing your resume and connecting with people. But the idea is you want to meet other aspiring developers. You also want to meet other full-time software engineers to share their advice with you. You can do that through meetups. You can do that through online communities. You can do that through LinkedIn. People shy away from LinkedIn. When you create posts and you put yourself out there and you share a project, you say you're trying to learn a new technology, a new framework. You ask for feedback on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's algorithm is going to put that in front of people. People love to see other aspiring developers that are curious, right? That bring passion into the industry. The more humble you are, from what I've seen, the more people want to help you. Sounds obvious, right? So when you make these posts, when you connect with people, it's not about showing what you can do and, like how skilled you are. It's about, in my opinion, being vulnerable. It's about showing that you just want to learn. You love learning. You're really curious about it. And that will attract people to leave comments, leave reviews, connect you with people. LinkedIn is very powerful for that. Just so, I've mentioned the idea of like starting a blog, and that is kind of a long-term solution, but I think people underutilize LinkedIn. It shouldn't be about complaining about the interview process. It shouldn't be, complaining about like, you're never going to find a job and, you have all these things against you. Like a successful software engineer is resourceful. They figure out what to do, how to overcome that solution. So you can share like, I just had a really rough day, got discouraged, could not figure out this code. That's great to share stuff like that. But you want to share stuff that shows that it's like, okay, had a bad day, love to talk about it, but next day, we're going to tackle it the next day and we're going to try the next day. You show that kind of attitude, that curiosity and that humbleness and that drive forward, that is hireable. That is so attractive to employers. And so giving a taste of your personality, showing off how you're going about learning, you'd be surprised at the network that you can build on LinkedIn. When you build up your network on LinkedIn, you can get invites to different events. And people, like when you put yourself out there, you put yourself on the top of people's minds sometimes. They're like, oh, I just heard of this event. I'm going to share it with this person. The more you put yourself out there, the more you connect with people, the more chances you have of getting connected with the right people that eventually are going to get that, help you get that job. And so part of that is even contacting and reaching out to software engineers, and not asking for like a 45-minute phone call, just saying, hey, really, I love the article that you just posted. Really struggling right now. Do you have like 10 minutes during lunch or something like that? I'd love to pick your brain about a couple stuff. And sharing their article and liking it and showing that you're trying to provide some sort of value. You're not just like going around spamming everyone, asking for a bunch, like all of their time. And it's kind of a reciprocal thing. It's providing a little value and asking just for a little in return. And having that conversation with software engineers, it's figuring out every opportunity you have to connect with people. And people are shy about that. They're very shy about that. So when we talk about like networking and career coaches, a lot of these people that can help you with this kind of stuff, they're on LinkedIn. They're at meetups. They're at events. They're at hackathons. There's so many different events that you can join, and it's just putting yourself out there in a vulnerable position, which is a very hard thing to do. And I promise you, as long as you keep at it, you will connect with people. That's what networking's about. It's showing that humility. It's showing that vulnerability. It's being a human being that others can connect with, and also trying to provide value in return where you can. That's the key to networking. And there are so many other different platforms besides LinkedIn that you can connect with people. But like, there's a big online boom for communities, over the past couple of years, and take advantage of that. Connect with people that you feel like you can provide some value with, and they can provide some value with you. And so there are specific strategies we can dive into, but I promise you, I think a lot more people need to get more active on LinkedIn. That's the platform you want to be on. That's where you can find coaches. And so I've also talked about this idea. It's like when you want to find a mentor, you want to find mentorship. Mentorship doesn't have to be where you're sitting, face to face or on a Zoom call and asking for this person's advice. And, you can gain mentorship. You can gain something out of finding mentors that are just inspiring to you, finding mentors that are relatable to you. And that could be on YouTube. Like YouTube is a huge thing. I considered I had like 3 mentors on YouTube. And I looked up to them. I listened to their advice and I thought about it. And, you can find that mentorship, but mentorship can be just about you finding people that you aspire to be, that gives you advice that resonates with you. And so YouTube is really, really good for that. Find developers on YouTube that inspire you, that make you feel like I have a chance of getting this position, right? And a lot of those mentors on YouTube, when they're vulnerable, when they share how hard it was for them, isn't it easier to connect and relate to them, right? And so, going back to like vulnerability is so powerful in networking. It's so powerful, and people underestimate that. Hey, Karen, welcome from Brazil. Welcome. So these career coaches are often overworked. A lot of coding boot camps, usually you'll be lucky to get an interview, or not an interview, just some sort of conversation with the career coaches. But very often these career coaches tell you how to prepare your resume. You can look up resume tips. There are so many communities that will share good resume tips. And they give you strategies for the job search. There's so many developers on YouTube that will give you strategies for the job search. And one really crucial tool that I think you should be doing when you are ready for that job search is marking down the jobs that you applied to, keeping track of it, right? It can feel very and this is something that's very often, this advice is very often given for aspiring developers from career coaches, is track this stuff. You need to, just like you should be finding a way to track how you're growing as a software engineer in terms of technical ability, you should be doing the same with the job search. You need to see progress, right? Applying to, when you lose count of the positions that you applied to and you're like, things start to feel hopeless, right? But when you can say, okay, I just applied to 100 jobs, I did get 2 interviews, and you can kind of analyze. I'd be careful about like over analyzing it, because a lot of it, some people will get discouraged and be like, I really screwed up that interview, I'm going to screw up that's not the mindset to have. The mindset to have is, okay, these 2 positions did bring me in for a phone screening. I didn't even get to the technical screening. Why is that, right? And so maybe this is part of like the self-assessment that you need to build, self-awareness that you need to build as a self-taught developer. Why didn't I pass that soft skills screening? Why didn't I pass that cultural screening, which is usually the initial phone screen? And it's like matching up your skills, right? Sometimes those skills just don't match up. But a lot of being successful as a self-taught developer is about building self-awareness. It's about figuring out systems. And this is why I tell you, like, write everything down, track it in a spreadsheet. How far do you get with this company? How far do you get with this company? What are the companies you're applying to? What are the industries they are? Like, it's interesting to see, okay, this industry, like the healthcare industry, I actually got 2 interviews from that. No interviews from any other industry. Why is that? Look at your resume. Does that speak to healthcare? Do you have a history of healthcare somewhere that's kind of intriguing people? Do you have a project focused on healthcare that you're like, oh, maybe that is why employers from these kind of jobs are calling me back? It's incredibly important. My mentors have been your videos and podcasts like Syntax. That's awesome, Thomas. Syntax, I haven't seen his videos in a while. Should also mention it's free. All of this is free. All of this is free. So you also get a support system. You're able to talk to instructors. And I think a lot of self-taught developers, they want confidence that they're going in the right direction, right? So we talk about this idea of like, a big thing is like motivation and self-discipline. 2 big things. Never, ever, 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 ever let motivation dictate your actions. And a lot of people do, right? And they lose motivation. And so I personally believe in developing a system that creates self-discipline, that creates habit, that creates a plan. Because the self-taught path, and really the path of a software engineer, no matter what you choose, is going to be a long path. And so I think as a software engineer, you're going to be developing systems as a professional. Start developing systems for your life in just making sure, like, even if it's like creating a to-do list every day. It's not like, what do I want to say? Even creating a to-do list of what you want to do that day will help you accomplish those goals. And then sometimes you realize, like, this actually didn't move me forward at all. I just spent 5 hours with the tutorial and I didn't retain anything. This is a bad idea. That's perfect. So that self-awareness is a skill you're building right now. That, like, little stuff like that, little wins like that, people need to recognize in the self-developer path. Like, that's huge. People underestimate their growth because they don't recognize what actually is an accomplishment. I think that's really big. A lot of people screw that one up. So developing a system, even if it's a to-do list, and having some self-awareness, looking back on your day to realize what you actually did accomplish, or you just learned that, that wasn't a good strategy. I'm going to go ahead and change the next day's to-do list, right? That's adapting to your situation. That's having self-awareness and adapting and creating a better plan for tomorrow. Self-taught path is all about analyzing what you're doing and doing your best to create kind of like a rubric, a system of, like, are you actually accomplishing anything? Are you successfully growing as a software engineer? Are you going in the right direction? You need to figure those things out. And sometimes it could just start with that networking, right? It getting, like, what if you had a really good question to ask software engineers, if you had to go back in time and you had to teach yourself this stuff, how would you go about it? What would be your plan? That software engineer in that 10-minute time could cover that. You talk to 5 people that cover their plans, you can usually curate some sort of rough plan for yourself, right? So support system with instructors and staff, you can ask questions. Keep in mind, there are developer communities everywhere. And I would argue several coding boot camps even struggle with staff being underfunded and too many people being populated in that classroom. So even in coding boot camps, people struggle to get the support they need. But your support system simply changes. You have to be more resourceful in how you're finding developers, who you're asking questions, and think, like, pay mentorship. Like if you had planned to spend $10,000, $20,000 on a coding boot camp and you decided not to do that, you have extra money that you could pay for mentorship. You could pay for, like, a one-on-one. You could pay for, like, a private tutor or something like that. You're just redirecting your money and you're finding your instructors elsewhere. And so self-taught path is all about being resourceful. It's so huge. It's developing the mindset of, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to try my best to figure it out. And one thing I can assure you is when you develop that mindset and you just take steps to move forward. Like I said, you come up with a to-do list for the day, and then you analyze that to-do list. Do you feel like you were growing? How do you feel like why do you think you grew, or why do you think you didn't grow as a software engineer? What is your grading scale for your growth? You need to figure that out. But it's about being self-aware of your situation, going into the next day, and trying again. It's literally just taking one step forward day after day after day. And people don't realize this, but you are developing a habit of resourcefulness. You're developing a habit of self-discipline doing all of this. Where a lot of people that are going into coding boot camps, you know what usually happens? Very often that happens. They go through a coding boot camp because they want structure, and we could talk about accountability as well, but they want all of this, and then they lean on someone else to provide that for them. Then what happens when they graduate the coding boot camp? They go right back into their old habits. Do you know how many graduates go right back into their old habits? It's huge. The number is huge. A lot of people struggle to keep that rhythm up, or even keep up like 3/4 of the momentum that they had in that coding bootcamp. A lot of people struggle with this. You will hear this very often. That momentum is important. Now, that momentum, in my opinion, with the self-taught developer, even if you don't find the right curriculum right away, that momentum that you develop is going to be more instilled inside of you. It's going to be a habit that you've truly built up. And I feel like it's going to be very hard once you build that self-discipline and those habits. It's going to be way harder for you to shake that and lose momentum than if you were just leaning on someone the whole time, completely exhausted with a program. You come out of it, okay, now what do I do, right? Because you didn't really build that habit of thinking for yourself. You didn't really build that habit of being resourceful, of building your self-discipline. Like it was all forced on you. Self-taught developers have this ability, and employers admire that. If you can be a successful self-taught developer, you can learn anything you want in the world. You can get any position you want in the world, in my opinion. It's so powerful, the type of person that you become as a self-taught developer. And I think that's really important to recognize. So don't underestimate yourself. Even if you've had a rough day, even if you feel like you're going in the right direction, you are still building useful, resourceful skills, skills of self-discipline that will carry over, that a lot of coding bootcamp graduates lack. We'll pause there. The road of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That's right, Thomas. That's right. Strive for progress, not perfection. Absolutely. That's another thing. It's fighting against perfection. I think that holds a lot of self-taught developers back. It's because if you don't have any sort of, if you don't really know what you should be building, what your current skill level should be, a lot of people will question, like, am I good enough? Am I doing this the right way? It's like the key is to just analyze your previous work. You build project after project after project. I encourage people, especially with the self-taught developer pad, build a bunch of small projects and look at your code a month ago, 2 months ago. If you struggle with analyzing, like, are you heading in the right direction? Set like a day aside. You could do it every week. You could do it every 2 weeks. You could do it every month, whatever works for you. But set a day aside to just spend like an hour looking at some old projects and figure out what you're doing differently. Do you feel like your code's upgrading? Do you feel like you're caring more about the architecture? Your code's a little bit cleaner. It's more efficient. Like, look for those things in your old code. That's how you figure out if you're growing as a software engineer. And that's huge. Hey, Resley. I'm listening to this while I work, though. I can't have my phone out for long. You're good, Resley. Thanks for being here either way. We are creatures of habit. Build the habits that you want your future self to have. I like that. That's really good. So, code reviews. Code reviews are tricky. It's very hard to get a traditional code review because it can be a little bit time consuming, but there are many developer communities that will do this, where they will bring in like mentors to analyze code for free. You have to look for them. Like, a hard part about being a self-developer or a self-taught developer and finding the right community is finding the right community. You have to do your research, and you have to continue looking throughout your entire process. Your needs are going to upgrade. They're going to change as you grow as a software engineer. You have to recognize that. And sometimes that means you move on from that community and find one that's, a little bit, that resonates more with you. You don't have to leave your old community. You can make friends in that community. You can stay in it, but you might have to constantly look for new communities that are offering what you need, right? So code reviews, you could even, Discord has a discoverability feature. I don't know if Slack does, but like Google web development communities, web development Discord channels, web development Slack channels. Look at meetups, just like networking and pay attention to what people are posting. Connect with people that post events. Connect with people that, like, you can just follow them. Even if they won't connect with you on LinkedIn, you can follow them and just have a feed of events that typically will lead to, okay, a lot of people that host these events, a big purpose is to like lead them back to their lead you back to their community of developers. And so having that feed will help you kind of just have a list of communities that you can look into and see if it's the right fit. But code reviews exist. You can find them. Accountability is really tricky. You can find friends, even if it's like, it sounds silly, but if you're still living with your parents, or you're living with a roommate or something like that, it's like you can ask that person that you're living with to ask you, like, to describe your week. What did you learn? What did you accomplish? Having it's really good for workouts. It's really good for diets. It's really good for, and that's what I'm focused on right now. It's really good for just any sort of like educational paths that you're going down. It's finding a friend, more importantly, but like the strong way to do this is finding a friend that has similar goals to you. And this is where these developer communities full of aspiring developers can really help you out. It's like finding other developers that are working on the same things as you and basically just asking the question, hey, I'm really struggling with accountability. Would you like to set some goals with each other and hold each other accountable? Like, people love that. Everyone wants accountability. I guarantee you are not the only one that wants accountability. So many aspiring developers. I can tell you so many people, and it hurts me because I guess I don't really offer this with my community, but so many people come into my community like looking for that accountability, and I know they DM each other, and maybe that's something I need to develop in my community. But other communities do have that. That accountability is huge. And pairing with someone that resonates with you, you get along with, has similar goals, you can find so many people like that. There is an endless list of aspiring developers in almost any developer community. You're going to have to reach out to people, right? And sometimes that's very hard to do. So the same thing goes with collaboration with other developers. Pair programming. So this is an interesting concept. A lot of people look for pair programming in a coding bootcamp. I think getting to experience pair programming with someone can be valuable, and it can also be a waste of your time. That's a big it depends. I've seen pair programming performed poorly where one person just wants to hog the entire thing. You don't really get a chance to drive. If you want to find a pair programming partner, I think it should be 50-50, and you should do the driving. They should do the driving for different features. And you can find that with developer communities. I think it's a really cool thing to try, but more importantly, I think focusing on group projects is going to help you. And doing code reviews for each other with the group projects, that's going to help you develop skills that will translate into being a professional software engineer and working on a team. Those skills you can represent on your resume. Group projects are really good for that because like getting used to version control and just not stepping on each other's toes with Git and figuring out the right way to do that. A lot of aspiring developers haven't really experienced that. And you can practice that on your own with your own project. Now, confidence in finding a job. Okay. So job guarantees are an illusion. Job guarantees don't exist for anyone. They just don't. They don't exist for any program. And a lot of clauses are worded very carefully to make sure that programs don't, they're not totally on the hook for that job guarantee. I always talk about looking at clauses that you're signing for contracts with coding bootcamps, but job guarantees are an illusion. And even when they submit data to something like ser.org, there are interesting ways to manipulate that data. And I guess maybe we could do a live stream on how coding bootcamps can kind of fit deliver the data that ser.org is requiring, but maybe not tell the whole story. But I promise you, even when coding bootcamps are transparent about stuff like that, it's not something you should ever trust. That job guarantee, in my experience, is an illusion. And it literally is all on you to find that job. It's 100% on you to find that job. And I think that's important to recognize. I think people have way too much confidence that a coding bootcamp is going to get them a job. Way too many people have that confidence. It's false confidence. It really is. And I hate to say it, but I've reviewed, 30 plus coding bootcamps, 40 educational programs. That job guarantee is an illusion. Do not ever trust any program that offers that fully. Don't ever put $20,000 and your life in their hands. The people that get jobs are the ones that are they're motivated, they keep that momentum up, and they put in the work and the time and the resourcefulness to figure out how to finally get connected with the company. Never ever trust that the job guarantee is an actual job guarantee. That's just something I've learned over reviewing all of these educational programs. So, can it increase the chances of you getting it? Yeah, It can, potentially through more support, but we talked about how to supplement that support. We talked about how to supplement that career advice. Like all of this stuff can be supplemented without dumping $20,000, $10,000, even $5,000 into a program. So I just want you to be cautious. It's fine if you want to choose a program that like the legalese, you're comfortable with it enough where, you know, they're kind of on the hook for that job guarantee, but don't trust it. Internship and job opportunities. This is another one that I think coding bootcamps oversell as well. All right, so let's pause here. I feel like we are all self-taught. I'm a college grad. Finding a community with the type of devs you want to be earlier helps you analyze your process. It really does. I was listening to recruiters instead of till I found developers doing what I want to do. I love it. I mean, you would be surprised at a lot of these habits that you're building as a self-taught developer, even a coding bootcamp graduate, that you now have to build up after you graduate college. Self-taught has an advantage of finding jobs. You are more self-sufficient. You can put more focus on making portfolio on a job. I think, and we're going to dive into that, but sometimes coding boot camps, that trap of like, well, they're telling you what language to learn can be it can be a con. It could be a negative aspect of the coding boot camp. And hopefully I remember, but I want to explain why that is. But like when you build this resourcefulness, when you build this self-discipline, you're building things that coding boot camp graduates aren't building at the same rate, in my opinion. Hey, Michael. I only started making good progress when I moved to a tech company. It was around people who are programmers. It gave me motivation to see real people. So what I'm aiming to do, that's the key. It's literally just finding, it's getting that inspiration, but it's surrounding yourself with your network. It's like, I don't know if you've heard, but you know, like a lot of your friends, they have, I think a lot of people like focus on this free will and them being independent and like they control their future. But a lot of successful people don't control their future based on like this complete free will and they just do what it takes. It's like they make smart decisions to change their environment. They make smart decisions to toss people out of their lives that aren't building them up. You know, as you get older, you realize there are friendships that sometimes that friendship has expired. You know, it's a really sad thing, but some people don't change. And if you want to change, if you want to become better, it's incredibly important to surround yourself with a network of people. It's not even just like other developers, but it's like family, it's friends that are that believe in what you're doing, that are going to support you. Your friendship, your network, not just your professional network, your personal network is crucial, and it absolutely will influence what you are going to do, how successful you are going to be. Human beings we're just a bunch of neurological connections that form based on repetitive actions, habits that we build. That's all we are. And your external environment is crucial in defining that. And you want to make sure these habits that you're building, this mindset that you're developing, is putting you in the direction that you want to go to where you're truly going to be fulfilled. So I want you to really consider who you surround yourself with. And that's why I think like getting involved with developer communities that have, you know, meeting other people with similar ambitions, it's so helpful. It's so incredibly helpful in giving you the true support that you need. So, internship and job opportunities. I think Rhythm offers an internship. A few others do. It can be helpful. And I would actually say that's a stronger, when you can get professional experience. And some people define like with a coding bootcamp professional experience, because I worked on a group project. It was a start, like that's BS. You didn't work at a startup. You didn't get professional experience. You're just lying on your resume and trying to manipulate the employer and probably wasting their time. But there are actual coding bootcamps that will offer real professional experience at companies. That is, it's an advantage, but I think it's rare. It's very, very rare. And internship opportunities, you often see them, shared with CS graduates, and it's a little bit more college friendly. As a self-taught developer, you don't really have a lot of opportunities for internship. They are out there. You can look at AngelList. You can look at like connecting with project managers that want to create an idea. We could talk about like how to define expectations and like clearly just make sure, you're not just getting screwed over with something like that. We could do a whole live stream about that. But internship opportunities are rare, and they're not necessary. And I would argue that you should be careful about the amount of energy you're spending trying to find one of these. And as far as job opportunities, no, I've seen so many coding boot camps say like career day, and you hear stories about like these developers that find jobs based on the career day and the companies that coding boot camps bring in. It's like a lot of coding boot camps slack on that. And I've seen that over the last 2 years. A lot of coding boot camps are turning career days into interview practice, right? So now the companies aren't really even interested in hiring you. They're just giving you interview practice. You'll see this. It's a common pattern with coding boot camps. And it's just, I don't know a single coding bootcamp that legitimately like you should sign up for that coding bootcamp because they actually provide strong connections with getting you a job. Coding bootcamps don't get you a job. They just don't. Any coding bootcamp that's offering something like that, I would be skeptical of. And a lot of times with those career days, if they still offer them, like the teacher's assistants, fellows, they will usually get the jobs. So be careful about that. I think that's an illusion. Internship and job opportunities, very rare. It's an illusion. You are 100% when you go to a coding boot camp on the hook for getting that job. A lot of people think this is a huge advantage with coding boot camps. It just isn't. I don't believe in that. Yeah, right. Let's pause there. We got one more. And then we're going to dive into, give some strategies for self-taught developers. Everyone that's here, I appreciate you being here. Thank you, thank you. Oh, hey, Sam. How's it going? What do you think about Amazon Technical Academy? I haven't looked into it, Lulu. All right. Curated curriculum focused on building skills that employers are looking for now. So a common advice that I give for people even before they consider a coding bootcamp is, what do you want to build? And what's marketable? You can usually build like mobile apps. You can usually build web development, like web apps with several different technologies. You have a choice. And so first, I think it's important to realize like what do you find cool about coding? What makes you curious about coding? Like why are you getting into it? And I think people need to stop and think about that. They need to analyze that. Sometimes it's just like figuring out like, okay, I have like a list of 100 apps that I use, or I used over the last month, 3 months, 6 months. What kind of, like, which of those would I love to build? What if I was a developer of one of those apps, right? That's incredibly important to figure out. I think a lot of people skip that step. They don't really analyze that. And so my advice for people choosing a coding bootcamp is figure out what you want to build. And that means going the self-taught developer path. It means learning some fundamentals. It means trying to build something really tiny and minuscule, but like getting it in front of you and experiencing that and like getting that first aha moment, like, yeah, I finally figured it out, right? It's about finally achieving that and figuring out like what gets you excited. Do you want to learn CSS? Do you love the idea of styling your webpage, or do you love the idea of like writing an efficient algorithm, even if it's like, oh, I just learned how to do a loop. Now I know how to do it a little bit faster, and this like loop nested in a loop is kind of weird. There has to be a better way, and you love figuring that out. It's experimenting. Everyone, even going to a coding bootcamp, should be going the self-taught route to figure out what they like. And so that also, like I said, when you're figuring out what you want to build, you also need to do some research and figure out in your local area, in the closest large city, because that's where you stand to get a job, the highest chance of getting a job. What are companies looking for? Go through 100 job postings, go through 200 job postings, build a spreadsheet, list all the technologies. What is most marketable in that local area? And so a lot of people are like, what language should I learn? I think that's the very first step that you should do. You want to do your research to figure out what's marketable before you trust a coding bootcamp to decide that for you. A lot of coding boot camps go with non-marketable stuff like we always see like Ruby on Rails. It's like they teach that. The boot camp becomes really popular. A lot of people trust them. But like in your local area, is that really what's marketable? In the United States, is that really what's marketable? Sometimes these coding boot camps are trying to train entrepreneurs. Sometimes they're not trying to create professional software engineers that are going to work on teams, large teams, small teams. And so I think figuring out what's in your local area and what's marketable, you should decide that and not let the coding bootcamp decide that for you. But that's what you do as a self-taught developer. You wonder, okay, well, how do I know what to learn? That research that you do is how you determine that. It's incredibly important. And even getting connected with developer communities and getting other people's opinions, I would be cautious. I've had a lot of people come into my community, but they will say a lot of people are opinionated about the language that they learned, right? And then you'll get people that learn tons of languages and they'll bash other languages. Like when you find a developer that's like, this language is garbage, but stay away from that developer. Every language is it's like a tool for a different type of solution. Never, ever, ever trust a developer that seriously, like it's not just a meme. They're seriously saying like, this language is garbage. This framework is garbage. Never, ever, ever follow that type of developer. I can promise you they're going to lead you down the wrong path. So find developers that have used different languages and see what they think about it, what they built with it, see what kind of things you can build with it. But that's what you're doing. It's doing research as a self-taught developer to figure out what's most marketable, what highest chance of getting a job that also allows you to build what you want to build. That also allows you to have those aha moments that you get excited about. That also allows you to build projects that you want to wake up to and actually work on it, not put it off. You know what I mean? So many people will go back into tutorials and they shy away from their projects. You want to be excited about building that project. And the really cool thing is when you start with this idea of like what you want to build, that can curate your education. That can direct you to finding, or that can direct you to like really have a focused path with your education and not just doing this generic course that claims to teach fundamentals and teach all the frameworks that you need to learn. It's like, do you know how many times I've seen programs that have sections in their curriculum that like but they move too quickly into like trying to teach marketable skills or libraries, and people aren't prepared for React. They're not prepared for something like SQLize on the back end. They're not prepared for this because it doesn't focus enough on fundamentals. But, you know, when you have a focused type of education, you can choose curriculums that have a very narrow path that dive deep into what you need to learn to be able to be successful on that very narrow path. And I think the trick is, as a self-taught developer, it's narrowing that path and having a very targeted path that's going to teach you what you need to learn. It's a very tricky thing to do, and you will get better at it. When you jump into courses, when you build stuff, it's going to start training your mind to identify solutions that exist that you want to solve, what you actually can do with your code, how you actually can apply it to these types of projects that you want to build. But you're going to get better at curating your own educational path, and it's going to become more targeted as you put more time into it. And it should. So that's kind of like a situation where I would say trust the process a little bit and just keep building. All right, let's pause here. Hey, Ludo. Welcome, welcome. I don't know what that emote is. I wish I wasn't at work. I would love to participate in this conversation. You're good. Hey, you just being here. Always love to have more people. Search job postings to see what skills are on demand. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what even coding bootcamp graduates should do. So here's what I want to do. With this very advanced tool that only I have access to, called Pages, we're going to delete this. So this is basically advantages of a coding bootcamp, right? That's what we just went through. So advantages, we're going to change this, of the self-taught route. And everything I listed here, we squashed. Did we not? Just because a program makes you feel confident in the program doesn't mean it's going to be a better choice for your route. And that's really important to recognize. So advantages of the self-taught route. Beer mug saying cheers and thanks. I appreciate that. Cheers. All right. So what are some advantages of the self-taught route? Feel free to share it in chat. I'm going to list some of my own, but I don't come up with everything on my own. You guys are incredibly helpful. So if I miss anything, feel free to share it in chat. What do you think are the advantages of the self-taught route? And then we're going to go over these. And I kind of want to clarify. I think the last thing I really want to touch on is that curriculum thing and how to figure out how to curate your curriculum. Now, that's a much longer conversation. And to curate a curriculum, like I can't just curate this generic curriculum that works for you. That's the really tricky thing when people develop courses. Sometimes that path doesn't work for them, but I want to teach you some things on how to at least focus on or figure out what to look for in courses, right? Can't get a web dev job, targeting mobile development instead would be a good strategy? No. If you don't want it, less competition, but a lot less jobs. I would look at I did Dev Mountain, had a mobile program. Watch that review on my YouTube channel. But you should be focused on what you want to learn, what you actually want to grow with. Captain of your own ship. So that's a double-edged sword. Self-paced. What else? Ownership of learning. Incredibly important. Better self-awareness and resourcefulness. How do you spell it? I think so. Targeted education. We dove into that a little bit. Boosts self-esteem and ability to self-reflect. No, I think that's pretty good. Is being an iOS dev easier than a front end? I don't think one is easier over the other from the people that I talk to. The easier path is going to be the one that you enjoy. Multitude of sources. Kind of like being able to experiment with a bunch of different courses, stuff like that. I would agree with that. So we can link this in with education, maybe. We'll put a bullet underneath. Choice in courses, in many courses. We could dive into that. No problem, Mervin, or Mervis. Remote connectivity. Yeah, but a lot of coding bootcamps are remote. I don't know if that's an advantage of self-taught over coding bootcamps. Self-taught builds your resilience. It absolutely does, Karen. It absolutely does. And we could talk about like resilience. Oh my God, I can't spell it. Resilience? There's no way. Is that how you spell it? We're going to say it is. Resilience. And self-discipline. Self-taught, more affordable, less risk. I 100% agree with that. Could even play devil's advocate with that too. Money, yep. Agree with you there, Jonathan. After struggling with being self-taught since June, I just signed up for a Bootcamp Full Stack Academy remote starting in December. This is messing me up. No, don't let it mess you up. It's just another option, right? If you already committed with something, Like the big thing is when you do commit with something, like don't second guess yourself. A lot of people do that and they kind of just tread water. They don't make progress. I can't stand these $10 USD Udemy courses. I never finished them. I have so many unfinished courses with Udemy. So many. If an employer looked at the number of courses that are unfinished with Udemy, they would think I would never finish my projects professionally. So we just share that with you. That's a secret between you and I, right? That stays here. So don't share that with any potential employers. So this is good. What order do we want this in? Self-paced ownership of learning, better self-awareness, choice of many courses, boost self-esteem, and targeted education. More affordable, less risk. Does this come at the end or in the beginning? At the end. You know what? At the beginning. Yep, this is perfect at the beginning. I think this is good. Let's run with this. Which is the best platform? My common response is there is no best. You have to figure out which program is right for you. I haven't reviewed Code Academy yet. Maybe I should do that. I found that Code Academy when I was looking on LinkedIn. A lot of people don't really put it as education. So I have to figure out how many people are trying to lie and say they were a software engineer at Code Academy, or if they have a specific like actual internship program, which I don't think they do. That's a messy one. I got to look into that before I review it. Ability to connect your previous work experience with new projects that you work. Ooh, I actually like that. Choice of many courses. I'm going to put that here. Build your own projects. That could even showcase your unique previous industry, which is powerful. All right, anything else? Doing a lot of Python on Udemy. All right, so I think we're good there. All right, let's get started. More affordable, less risk. That's a big one for self-taught. It's huge. I remember 5 years ago, I made a tweet on my old Twitter account. Becoming a developer is absolutely 100% free. There is no excuse. And I would say 98% of people supported that. And I got some pushback from about, I would say, actually, a couple people. A lot of people really have it in their mindset that you get what you pay for. And in most cases in your life, that's true. In terms of standing a better chance of not quitting, of getting that developer position, a supported educational program can alleviate a lot of stress and it can provide you some direction. And that's absolutely true. You absolutely get what you pay for, but what people underestimate is all the skills that you're actually building up as a self-taught developer. That's really important to recognize. how do I want to dive into this? So it is more affordable. There's free education, and you can completely get all the education and build your skills up for free. Now, that's not really the realistic scenario of what's going to happen. And I think even investing a little money into your education will help provide you quality education, at least in the beginning. I think, so one thing I want you to recognize is sometimes it's helpful to get that guidance really early. And it doesn't mean you have to go to this coding bootcamp, but even just going into a course that's kind of curated. I talk about this with Treehouse. I always discourage people from doing like the $100 a month or $200 a month, whatever it costs for the tech degree. And I say, just pay the $25. Like, I don't know if they upped it to $30, but pay the $25 a month, go through the courses, learn everything you can, and pair it with projects and build. Now, what happens is when they put a little bit of money into that investment, the more you do learn, the more you realize, and the more resourcefulness you actually build up to figure out what you need to learn next. That's a skill that comes with time and with just pushing forward as a developer. You don't have to go through a coding bootcamp to get that skill. But the more you learn, the more you realize like the path just becomes a little bit more narrow, a little bit more solidified, and you have to trust in that process. That's incredibly important. So paying a little bit more money for a quality course, I think, can be very helpful. And you can find free articles to supplement down the road. Free articles that you read are targeted education. Like if you want to figure out, okay, well, what's the difference between, session-based authentication and JSON Web Token? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What do I learn? There's so many articles that literally just hone in on that topic. If that's what you want to learn, if that's what you're trying to figure out, you can have very targeted free articles that focus just on that these generic courses that are charging you don't really give you a good idea. Sometimes you want to dive deeper. Sometimes you're curious. Developers are curious. You want to be a curious developer. It's completely natural to go out of bounds of that course, explore a little bit, build, experiment, tinker. That's really powerful. Take advantage of that. So I think it's okay to put a little money into your education in the beginning, but you don't have to put a lot. So it is much less risky because I want to tell you, when someone tells me, so a very common thing that people will sign up for my paid one-on-ones for is a very, very common thing. I've kind of narrowed it down to a couple coding boot camps. What do I choose? Do I even choose a coding boot camp? One of the very first conversations I have with people is it's diving into their financial situation, right? And I do it in a way, I'm very careful about it because some people are sensitive, but it's not like figuring out like how much money they're making. It's just figuring out, do they actually have a financial plan to back this venture up? Right? A lot of people go into coding boot camps trusting that dumping more money into this path is going to solve their problem. Maybe you do. I grew up very poor. I don't think I've shared that too often, but financial burdens can weigh on you big time. You can have the best education in the world. You can have like a really quality education. You could dump $20,000 into it. And if you are so stressed that you're figuring out, well, crap, I got to get a job within the next month after I graduate. I don't even know how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to take a leap. It's like, that was a bad decision. It was a very, very bad decision. You need to have leeway. If you choose a coding bootcamp, you need to have some runway. I always say 6 months to a year usually. And a lot of people have that weight ahead of them. And when you are stressed with money, most people make very poor decisions. People that are in a decent financial place make more logical decisions. They typically will put more time into planning, and they're not as pressured. A lot of people, it's so hard to perform under pressure. And I mean, that's a skill in itself that you have to build up. But like having that financial burden, it doesn't matter if the program is super like high quality, one of the best programs. If you have a heavy enough financial burden, good luck finishing that program. Good luck not burning out and just quitting. Good luck, not trying to take whatever job that you can get out of that coding boot camp. It might even taint your entire perspective of the software engineering industry. That financial burden is so big, people underestimate it. You need good financial planning if you're going to invest in your education. So this is where the self-taught path it's a less riskier situation than if you were to dump all this money, because a lot of people go into debt with coding boot camps. I don't know if anyone else here has debt. If you have college debt, you don't have to say, but like that is a heavy heavy weight that people underestimate. That's why self-taught developers, that self-taught path is so incredibly powerful, because you can continue working the job, helping you pay the bills, and do it on the side. And I highly encourage people to do that for as long as they can. And sometimes that means like having a little extra money to pay for good mentorship, and just directing your money in the right places, not just dumping everything you have. I'm telling you, it's a bad decision when you go into debt and you're pressured to find a job as fast as possible. It's one of the worst situations you can be in. People don't perform well in that situation. So the self-taught path is very low risk in this sense. All right, let's catch up. We'll pause there. There's no right choice for learning. There are different choices. Each is successful for different people. Absolutely. I just had the year subscription. It's maybe $200. It's great, actually. Nice. If it works for you. Samara. I almost said Samara. Samara, thanks for sharing. Hello, Alex. Hello. Would you say you need people networking skills as a strength when you do a coding bootcamp? That's a good question. Yeah. Networking skills, no. People skills, yeah. Usually that's going to be filtered out in the interview process, and you'll get better with your skills too. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect with people. Student debt is a cancer. Too many places push promises but leave you after the term is over. People forget that a coding bootcamp is it's 99% of the time a profitable business. It's a for-profit business. They are out for their money. They're absolutely out for the money. Usually you get a lot of support and you get a lot of connections through the instructors. But when we talk about like executive decisions based on the CEO and everything, people start coding boot camps. You can start a program, an educational program, and help a lot of people. You don't have to start a coding boot camp that takes $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. There's so many different options. So you have to think like, why is this you have to realize the priorities of the coding boot camp. We even dove into the triage situation, and it's like you recognize it for what it is. It's a business. It absolutely is a business, and I think people forget that. Okay, but I agree. Student debt, it's horrible. It's so horrible. And I think it leads people to make really, really bad decisions that don't help them in the long run. That's why it's horrible, in my opinion. So I do feel like it's less of a risk. It's more affordable. And at the very least, before you decide to pay money for an educational program, just experiment on your own. It's very low risk. Take advantage of that. Now, sometimes the flip side to that is sometimes people need to take a little bit more risk and put a fire under your butt. I don't think a heavy financial burden is the right fire, the right motivation, but a little fire can be. A little fire under our butts to complete it in a certain amount of time can be, and maybe that's just setting goals for yourself. But I do think that fire helps. And when you go to free code camp, you're not really investing. You're not really taking that risk. You're not holding yourself accountable. Like, who cares if you don't complete a free program? You didn't really invest anything into it. And so this is where it helps to recognize your faults. It helps to recognize what motivates you, what leads you in the right direction to build habits, what leads you in the right direction to be self-aware about your choices. It's like when you start with the self-taught path, you have to focus on self-assessment, self-awareness, and figure out like what's actually motivating you. If you didn't complete that 2-hour long course that you wanted to the previous day, why didn't you do it? And it's recognizing that. That's so important. That's so important. This is the key to being successful as a self-taught developer. So less risk can be hurtful for you. Some people might not benefit from that. And so self-paced, kind of just exactly what we just talked about, it's a double-edged sword. Self-paced, you not having a deadline to complete a course, in most cases, will be unhelpful for you. You realizing, hey, I work 30, 40 hours. I have 10 hours extra a week. I got to spend some time with the family. You knowing that and knowing how many hours you have to invest and then creating goals for yourself that you hit. Holding yourself accountable for hitting those goals. That's what you should be doing. Not jumping into a course saying, I'll complete it when I complete it. For most people, that doesn't work. And a lot of people will put that off, and especially if you didn't invest money into it, you don't really have that fire under your butt to complete it. That's the big thing. That's why self-developers, like, it's a big reason why self-developers give up and quit and go back to their old jobs and don't really push themselves, is because they don't really set legitimate, realistic goals that they can hit and hold themselves accountable with that. You have to figure out how to do that, and a lot of that is just being self-aware and analyzing how you did that previous day. Think about like what a coding bootcamp is going to do. They're going to lay out a schedule for you. They're going to say, we're going to learn this today. If you... we're going to learn this today. You're going to try it out in a project, and then next day we're going to learn this. That's a successful part of coding boot camps. That's an advantage. Why can't you bring that into your own life, right? And now you have the advantage of being flexible. It's like, man, I got a family, I got kids, I got a spouse, and I got to spend time. I got to help my parents out this weekend. I have 10 hours. I have 8 hours today or this week to finish it. But then you develop that plan. Take advantage of what coding boot camps have already figured out. Take advantage of what traditional education has already figured out. Develop that plan for you. And then even if you don't hit it, you do your best to hit it, reassess. Why didn't you hit that plan? Come up with a new plan. Come up with like a new to-do list for the next week. That structure, I'm telling you, a lot of people don't like structure. A lot of people don't like structure. And most people that don't like it, it's usually helpful for them. I am one of those people. I hate structure. I hate calendar events. I hate sticking with the schedule. And I will never, ever be successful in my business if I ever drop my schedule, my calendar. I have to have that structure. I have to. I don't like it, but I know how powerful it is in moving me forward towards my goals. It's incredibly important. So, self-pace is really, really flexible, but to make it work, you need to set those goals. You need to do your best to hit them. You need to reassess and, challenge yourself a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit for the next week of what you think you can hit. All right, so we'll pause there. Oh, man, I love talking about this stuff. I absolutely love talking about this stuff. I do too, Lulu. Like, I still have like $70,000 in student debt. Oh. I'm actually an IT student on second year of college in Romania, and I feel like I don't have learned something important, just basically useless stuff. I do everything online since October of last year. And with a lot of college degrees, it's important to recognize, like, what job do you want? A lot of people go into college, even a specific program, like, okay, I'm going to aim for these 10 jobs. No, figure out the job you want and supplement your college learning, and you are going to be very competitive towards that job. A lot of people going to college realize they need to supplement. Deadlines like a 30-day challenge is a healthy fire. Absolutely. Even it's funny because the 30-day challenge that I host, most people fail it. It's really hard to stay consistent with something like that. It really is. But the people that fail it, I actually might want to change this, but I need to emphasize to just like assess why they failed it. I might actually ask, well, that's a really good idea. I think I want to ask people why they failed it and just at least get them to say it out loud so they recognize what to try to overcome for the next time. I personally don't have student debt, fortunately, but a few friends from college are still paying off college today. They are struggling. It's like close to, man, college debt can pile up to like $500 to $1,000 a month. It's hard. I do think once you start paying bills, you go off on your own, it's a little bit easier to recognize this. But when you've been living with your parents for so long, it's hard to like really understand the reality of like taking $50,000 of student debt. Really to understand like interest rates actually matter, right? A lot of students won't even pay attention to the interest rates and they'll just take private loans. They won't even like apply to federal loans. I made the big mistake of not applying to scholarships. I'm like, I made a huge mistake with it. Yeah. But when I was younger, it's very hard to recognize that stuff and the reality of what you're going to be dealing with years down the road. As human beings, we're terrible at like translating what we're doing now and how that's going to translate to like a year down the road. That's why like really short-term goals are helpful. Okay. Nice advice. Don, thank you. Well, thank you, Sam. I'd love to be part of a group or something, or have a peer to study with. Doing it alone is tough at times. It can be. Doesn't Treehouse, that tech degree, have like a Slack channel? Do they still have that? Reach out to people in that Slack. If someone did want to go to the coding bootcamp route, is there any specific ones that you'd recommend? Nope. You're going to have to do your research on that one, Joika. I have tons of reviews on so many coding bootcamps. It's just the thing is, the right coding bootcamp is right for the right person. I don't think there's one coding bootcamp that's best for everyone, and you have to learn how to assess that. As a self-taught learner, I learned on a job, photography, retail, warehouse every day for 4 years. I put in a few hours after work. And sometimes it's just about like putting an hour in after work. Little by little, every day, just put an hour in. And it's just taking baby steps, but building up that momentum. I had to parent myself through managing my finances as a new grad. It's a skill. I wish they taught that skill in high school. I really wish that. I feel like our traditional educational system has failed us for many, many grades. Many, many grades. I don't have an issue just with college. I have an issue with high school. High school more specifically. High school and college, I think. I don't think high school teaches the practical skills people need. I am tired of building tic-tac-toe and to-do lists. These online courses should get more creative. Why can't you get more creative? You're right. So there's benefit in like going through something like that. There's benefit in going through something like that because, to-do lists and stuff are these projects that are repeated over and over. They help reinforce a lot of fundamental skills that you learned. But then what I would do is take time to build your own version of it, or build something that, and this is where you like start thinking critically about what you just learned, but it's like thinking of a project that's going to utilize, where you're going to have to build features that utilizes what you had just learned. If you're building a CRUD app, it's coming up with a creative project of a CRUD app that you would like to build. And I would almost argue when you're getting bored of those projects, great, use that as the fire under your butt to finally build your own project. I'm a big proponent of people go to work after high school and then they might figure out if they are passionate about something to the point of going to the university. I agree with that. I honestly do agree with that. I don't think general studies for colleges are good for anyone. And that's usually what happens. It's like general studies, you kind of figure things out. It's like the problem is you're going into debt for that. And I don't think that's a good option. I don't even think it can be useful, but a lot of people don't, they don't take advantage of that because they don't really understand the debt that they're going into. They kind of just blow it off. I don't recommend college for someone that can't afford it. I'm looking now to learn online everything alone. I have friends who found internships and get jobs before they go to college. Self-teaching is number one. Awesome. I love it. Do I recommend Treehouse still? I would watch the live stream. I went into great detail about that. It was last week's live stream. You are welcome, Alex. Thanks for joining us. All right. I feel like stuff opened up for me when I realized a bunch of stuff on the internet is a CRUD app, aka a dude. A lot, like 99% of apps are just CRUD apps. You're absolutely right. Once you learn how to build a CRUD app, you can build almost anything because you'll supplement the specific education that you need. Feels silly to admit it. No, it's like, how are you going to know that until you finally, like, those realizations happen later down the road. That's cool that you grasp that. All right, so let's keep going. A lot of comments. I always appreciate you guys sharing your opinions in chat, so thank you. Okay, so choice in many courses. This is helpful. So this is another double-edged sword. Everything is a double-edged sword with self-taught, right? So you know what we can do? Start deleting this stuff. All right, so choice in many courses. Build your, oh my God, this is a long live stream. All right, guess we're going a bit longer today. So choice in many courses can be a double-edged sword because when you don't, here's where it hurts you. When you don't really have a direction of what you want to learn and what you want to build, now you're tasked with the question of, well, like, what course is the best? What does that even mean, right? What course is going to help me become a developer? What does that even mean? Everyone has different opinions, but that's a terrible question. You should not be asking that. You should be asking, what course is going to teach me what I want to build? What course is going to teach me good fundamentals? What course is going to teach me do a good job of teaching me what I need to learn so eventually I can go off on my own and start building this stuff and start focusing more on targeted education? Those are the questions you should be asking. This very broad, what course is going to get me a developer job? Too many people ask that. You're not going to get an answer for that. That answer will solidify for you as you learn more material, as you build more. I'm telling you, you have to trust the process with that. And sometimes just going through a course, even if it's a terrible course, and realizing this is why it's terrible. You realizing why a course is so bad is super important, and recognize, like, that's growth. That's actually growth. You realizing a course is bad because of this reason helps you narrow down the next course and the next learning module that you want to go through. That's important. That's a win. A lot of self-developers, the problem is they don't recognize the wins that they are getting. That's powerful. So choices in courses, it can feel overwhelming. And this is why, and we talked about this is why you should have targeted education. It becomes even more targeted as you go through it. So I think starting with fundamentals is really good. Project-based courses are really good. But like, you got to figure out, like, do I like YouTube videos for courses? Do I like video learning? Do I like text learning? Do I like learning from a book? Like, you figuring out, so, one thing I learned, with one advantage of getting my psychology degree, a really important tool that I learned is there isn't a best type of learning. And I would even argue just because you prefer a certain type of learning, like studies showed that isn't even the best type of learning for you. The type of learning that encourages and forces you to think about what you're learning in a complex manner enough to retain it and apply it, that's the type of learning that's going to be advantageous. But I find that a lot of people that find the learning that they prefer, they will go through it. That the key thing is to continue moving forward with the self-taught path, because most people give up. Whatever continues to push you forward, sometimes that's the option that you should go for, So I think when you focus on targeted education, this is, I don't think it's I think this becomes an advantage. If you're focused on generic education, you want one course to solve all of your problems, this becomes a problem. So build your own projects that could even showcase your unique previous industry. This is really cool. A lot of developers will connect. We talked about like the healthcare industry. It's like if you have a healthcare background, you'd be surprised how many people that sparks up interest in the healthcare industry. Pairing your old industry because your old industry, you've identified problems that already exist in it. It's easier to come up with projects and solutions that solve those problems. And as you start learning more fundamentals, as you start learning more in technology, those solutions will start popping up in your head. You'll start connecting the dots of what you're learning with how it can be a technical solution as a software engineer for that problem that existed. So as you learn and as you think about problems that exist, you can start pairing that and creating your own projects. And these passion projects you hear about all the time, those are the powerful projects that solve real problems, projects that even gain a user base. You can even put a pricing model around it. You can build some passive income around it. If you're an entrepreneur spirit, I find that can be the fire under your butt. That can be the motivation to build projects like that. For me, that was always my thing. I wanted to build projects that people would actually use and people would find value in, could make some extra money off of it. And that's how I got into streaming and building tutorials and stuff like that. But either way, everyone has their unique journey, and pairing your old industry could be a very easy way of you building a project that matters and you finishing a project many, many graveyard projects exist. We're gonna take a 10-second moment of silence for all the graveyard projects that exist. So moment of silence, don't type in chat, 10 seconds. Okay. There are a lot of graveyard projects. If you want to look at a terrible GitHub of like 95% graveyard projects, look at my GitHub. So many developers give up on projects. And for a multitude of reasons, right? A lot of people lose motivation to build that project. A lot of people will learn something new and they don't really know how to apply that to their old project and they want to experiment. That's right. So projects that you complete are going to build better habits in a developer. They're going to give more confidence to your employer, your potential employer, that you can actually finish your work, that you don't just give up. That's powerful. It builds good habits, and it gives you portfolio projects that you cared about enough to build features on and continue pushing forward with. You would be surprised at the number of graveyard projects have. I would say almost every developer has like 85% of projects that remain unfinished. That creates a really bad habit. And when you finish a project, one thing employers can look for is also complexity. When you finish a project and you realize, oh, it'd be really cool if this information could be saved. Oh, well, we don't want people accessing, other people's information, so now we need authentication. When you finish a project, now you are in the space of working with a larger code base. Now you're in the space of building more complex features, and you continue building features. Now, building feature upon feature upon feature on the same project over and over when the features aren't required, they're not necessary, that makes no sense. It's time to move to a new project. But more complex projects create a more interesting conversation, especially when you enjoyed working on it. And you can talk about the complexity. You can talk about the specifics of the implementation. Finish your projects. And if you need to pair your projects and come up with ideas that link to your old industry, take advantage of that. And so we talked about targeted education and how important that is, so I'm going to actually toss that off. Ownership of learning. I guess that comes with targeted education, but as you learn, as you grow as a developer, you start finding more targeted educational resources out there. But also, is a really powerful thing that happens, and you holding yourself accountable for your education like this, in this manner, gives you a skill to be able to tackle any problem that the employer is going to throw at you. And this is something you should be incredibly proud of. As a self-taught developer, you're going to make tons of mistakes. Your path is going to look really weird, right? And it might take a little bit longer than coding bootcamp grads, and that's okay. But as it becomes more narrow, as it becomes more focused, you're developing such good habits that this is where you start becoming more competitive than coding bootcamp graduates. You finally figuring out what you need to learn, what you need to do. That momentum is instilled in you. That self-discipline, those plans, those goals, being able to clearly write out your goals, can translate into being able to scrap that last idea. But you being able to write those goals out is incredibly powerful, because as a developer, a professional developer, you are going to be accountable for your own time. You are. Developers are given a lot of freedom, more freedom than you expect, to just get the project done. And as a developer, you need to have those skills to be able to plan out these features and what that's going to look like. What am I going to look like? Or what is that work going to look like on day 1, day 2, in a week, in 2 weeks? And so you developing all these skills, you can be proud. You going down this windy path and eventually narrowing that path down into learning exactly what you need to learn, have a targeted plan, not only with your curriculum, but with your job search. You could start owning and being proud of that. That's a skill that most people don't build up. It's a skill that isn't built up in a lot of other industries. And this is why I think if you actually become a professional developer, you would be surprised at how successful you will be in a lot of other careers, a lot of other jobs. This is valued. This is why employers love developers that have non-traditional backgrounds, right? Non-traditional backgrounds, that's like your superhero power. Having a non-traditional background and making that successful is way harder than a coding bootcamp. It's way harder than a college degree. And you could disagree with me all day with that. I 100% have so much respect for self-taught developers. It's a very, very hard path, and you have to recognize how you're growing when you go down that path. So taking ownership of your learning, your journey, and being proud of that, and that comes with self-assessment every week. That comes with self-assessment every month. Now you own your trajectory. No coding bootcamp, no college degrees. Now you have no excuses but yourself to actually find that position. And it can be daunting at first, but when you actually accomplish this, that's how you beat imposter syndrome. That's how you gain confidence and be a successful developer and get comfortable with an uncomfortable situation. It's like you overcome all of this as a self-taught developer. And owning your journey is incredibly powerful. Gaining that independence is powerful. And I think sometimes self-taught developers need to take time out to recognize that. So again, better self-awareness, resourcefulness, resilience, and self-discipline. We dove into all of this. And the problem is self-taught developers are developing this, but they're not recognizing it. They're not giving themselves the pat on the back that they deserve. And this, I'm telling you, this boosts self-esteem, and this requirement, this necessity to self-reflect. All of these skills that you're building as a self-taught developer will carry over into management positions, different careers. I think self-taught developers are more resourceful. They're more self-disciplined than most other developers. So it's a really, really hard path to go down, right? And I think the key to becoming a successful self-developer and standing out amongst the crowd is recognizing these habits that you're building up. It's recognizing you having to be resourceful and connect with people and build these soft skills. And you're not like given all of this for free. You have to work for it. And it's like anything else. Like the more effort you put into something, the more you have to work for something, the more you're going to appreciate it. But also the more those habits are going to be solidified. People underestimate how desired non-traditional engineering backgrounds are. You can learn CS fundamentals. You can learn other things that our coding bootcamps have taught. And when you get that job, like all education is free at the end of the day. It really is. And when you develop the skill to find the education, that targeted education that moves you forward, it's something coding bootcamp graduates struggle with. It's something CS graduates struggle with. And the key is just like literally just moving forward and self-awareness. You will become more resourceful. You will become more desired. I promise you this path is very doable. You can argue with me all day long, but I think this path is going to be a reality in the near future. I think the coding bootcamp industry is going downhill. I think the quality of education is going downhill, and the expectation of what you're going to be paying because the inflation is going up is not going to be realistic. I think over the next 5 years, coding bootcamps are going to start going out of business, getting bought out. We're going to go back to traditional education or more cheaper alternatives for education. I think this coding bootcamp industry has gained enough profit. And yeah, so that's what I think. Hopefully this was helpful. I appreciate everyone engaging in chat. We'll catch up in chat in a little bit, but I think this self-taught path is going to become stronger, and I think there's going to be more support around it. I really do. At least as far as my community and what I want to do over the next year, I want to try to provide more support, encouragement, confidence for self-taught developers, because as I say, the only person that doesn't become a developer, doesn't matter what path you choose, is a developer that gives up. You just have to continue pushing forward with it. All right, let me catch up. Ooh, I like that. I work in fashion. I always think of how Could improvements to products that we use help the industry run smoothly and obviously help improve e-commerce? I like that. Being able to recognize that is strong. It's cool that you're already doing that. As a warehouse worker, I am creating an app that uses a FedEx API to save time for tracking packages. That's golden. That's what you do. It's literally creating solutions. And you can create, a lot of people have full-time jobs. You can create technical solutions for your job. Why not? Use what you're learning. I want to make sure, okay, the one-on-one isn't yet. Okay, so let's bring it back here. Interdisciplinary is the way to go, connecting sometimes superficially conflicting fields of work. It can be. And it doesn't have to be. But a lot of people find that that's an advantage, and they take advantage of it, and they can attract specific hiring managers. They'll catch the attention of specific hiring managers that build similar products to what they had to use, what they're trying to solve for in their old industry. There are 2 books that Dom recommended. So jQuery is old. It's still a useful book. You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Seriously, thank you, everyone. All right, that's it. We're going to continue doing live streams. I will do a live stream next Friday. Hopefully this was helpful. If you feel like people are struggling with the self-taught developer path, please share this with them. I know it's a long live stream. It's a lot to get through, but just put it in the background, and hopefully it is helpful towards people. And again, thank you so much for the Patreon support, becoming a YouTube member. I know it's like a coffee a month, like $5 a month. You don't have to do it, but to the people that do support me, I really do appreciate you. Helps more than you know. So thank you very much. And yeah, that's it. So feel free to leave your comments below. This will only be on YouTube. Agree, disagree, share whatever your thoughts are. But thanks for being here. We'll see you next Friday. Good luck on all of your projects, everyone, and happy coding.